Hi, it's so good to see you here. I'm glad you took time out of your day to watch this video. In this video, I create art inspired by the tiles that you see everywhere in Portugal, on the streets, in the museums, and in churches. This year, I traveled for 3 months through Europe, and I started in Porto, and from there I also went to Lisbon. I think both cities are wonderful, and I will tell you why in a minute. But during this trip, I also made a lot of art in my sketchbooks because I literally took it everywhere with me. And that was always a dream for me to do it for a couple of months. And I'm really happy that I finally did it. I recorded quite some footage during these months and I cannot wait to share more with you soon. But first, let's start painting. In the background of that previous clip, you see this gorgeous painting on the wall. It's quite special to me because it belongs to my grandparents. I grew up with it because it was in their living room in their house ever since I was born. I will put the name of the artist in the video. My grandma passed away last March, and after that the painting is now here. I live here with my twin sister, and so it feels really special to have this painting with us now because it brings so many great memories with it. There's just something lovely that I wanted to mention before I will really dive into my sketchbook. So let's talk about my sketchbook and art supplies first. I use the Stillman & Byrne mixed media sketchbook from the Delta series. The brand offers different sketchbooks, and this is one of my favorites because I get to choose between a hardcover and a softcover, and the paper quality is just really nice for various materials. The paint does not stick to the paper, and overall I just have a good experience with this brand. I use gouache paint. Right now I use a combination of Himimiya gouache and Winsor & Nilsson Designer's gouache. When I was traveling, I took the paint tubes with me, and I also brought mini paint palettes for storing the paint and to blend the colors easily, but I will make another video about my travel art supplies soon. A year ago, I started working with ProArt Polar paintbrushes. They're great for working with gouache paint since the brushes hold paint and water quite well. If you would like to recreate these paintings, I would recommend using 1 or 2 small brushes. For painting these tiles, you will paint a lot of tiny details, so you want to be able to work as steady and as small as possible. You can see the brown tape on the paper as well. This is masking tape, and I use it in this journal entry because I want to separate the different tiles. This is empty washi tape, and you can get it at several stores, both offline and online. I have this box with a lot of different colors, and it's fun each time to pick a color. It's something that definitely excites me before I start painting. I never visited Portugal before starting my Interrail journey here. My journey started here because I knew that the weather around this time would be already quite sunny in the south of Europe, and from Portugal I wanted to go to Spain and eventually take a plane to spend a month in Italy, and that's exactly what I did. But before arriving in Porto, I didn't know a lot about the city. I loved it almost immediately. I think the people are really kind, and I think it's pretty great how walkable Porto is. You can get everywhere by feet, and although the public transport is quite good, I didn't need to use it very often. Both Porto and Lisbon can be quite uphill, so you can definitely train your legs in these cities. I did think that Porto is easier for walking than Lisbon, but my opinion may differ from others. One thing that amazed me about Portugal is that you see these pretty tiles on the street. They're called azulejos. I am sorry, I know I probably don't pronounce the word correctly. I will give you a summary of the history of these azulejos. The term comes from an Arabic word meaning little polished stone. The tile work dates back to the 13th century. Around the 16th century, powerful leaders in the monarchy or church commissioned the mosaics, and production started to take place in country. During the 20th century, contemporary artists began creating original tilework installations in public settings. Train stations, libraries, and concert halls have become canvases, and if you look closely, it's almost everywhere. You can buy postcards with azulejos as well, or even get your own tile with your name or house address on it. That would definitely make a great souvenir. What I think is really interesting to know is that creating these tiles is true craftsmanship. Each tile is a clay or ceramic plate piece, generally with a square shape decorated with clay's colorful designs. The tiles are hand painted, so that gives you an idea of the time investment. The majority of hand-painted tiles shows Morris looping designs. Sometimes they have geometric or floral motifs. The drawing is on a parchment paper that is drawn with a graffiti pen and stamped with a kohl pencil in the tile. The paintwork is done with water-based paint, a powder that is mixed with water to work the density. After painting the foreground, the background is painted with a brush to highlight the piece. The dark shades will be added for the highlights and more watery paint for the shades until the frame is completed. After that, the hand-painted tile goes to the oven and the rest of the kohl disappears. The process reminds me of an art style that we use in the Netherlands called Delft Blue. I think Delft Blue is also inspired by this art style of painting tiles. In the Netherlands, we just don't do it outside, but we use it for tiles inside. Plates, vases, and hand-painted pottery. There is this well-known train station in Porto called the São Bento railway station. You can find the station in the center of Porto and it's one of the prettiest buildings here. Inside there are more than 20,000 painted tiles that decorate the station hall. If you ever visit Porto, you cannot miss this train station. From time to time it can be quite crowded in here, but I'm sure you will be amazed by all the pretty details that you see in the station hall. The tiles usually tell a story as well. At the train station, the tiles depict old crafts and military events from the history of northern Portugal. In Lisbon, I visited the National Azulejo's Museum. This was really interesting to see the different tiles and to learn more about the history of it. If you ever find yourself here, I would definitely recommend visiting this museum. I didn't have a big plan for starting this painting. All I knew is that I wanted to paint the tiles that inspired me, but I also wanted to experiment a bit with a loose style. And I think eventually it worked out pretty great. I didn't expect that this could work so well. Of course, the process is entirely different from how one usually creates these ceramic tiles, but I love how they kind of give off the same vibe and the same result. Gouache paint can be both opaque and transparent. It depends on how much water you add, and I think the same goes for the powder that is used to paint the original tiles. When it comes to the original tiles, to have the paint be the exact thickness requires knowledge. Not too watery and not too strong. If it is too thick, the brush starts dragging. If it is too watery, it will be difficult to achieve the expected tone. The blue tiles are definitely my favorite because I think they come closest to the original ones that you see everywhere in Portugal. Perhaps it sounds like an odd comparison, but somehow the tiles also remind me a bit of stamps. There's a quote I found a while ago about stamps. It was said by a man named Martijn Bulterman. He is chairman of the Dutch Association of Stamp Dealers. He describes a stamp as a painting with a serrated frame around it. He says, the similarity between a stamp and a painting is as logical as it is striking. Just like a painting, a stamp tells a story. There are even stamps that have caused riots. For me, a visit to a museum is almost as attractive as an album full of unique stamps. That's the quote. And to me, the tiles are as interesting to me as paintings. Walking through Porto and Lisbon made me feel as I was walking through an open-air museum all the time. I hope that this video gives you a good insight in how I recreate these tiles in my sketchbook. Sometimes I speed up the video and other times I show you a more detailed way in how I paint a certain tile. I think this video is already quite long, but I wanted to both share the painting process as detailed as possible with you and also not bore you by making the video too slow. But of course, if it takes so long for you, you can always speed up the video and just read the subtitles, so you will still get to know the background information. Looking back at the video and my process, I think it's interesting to see how I sometimes need to go through an ugly stage with my painting before I start liking it. With some tiles, I didn't like the look of them when I started painting, but when I look back, I think it fits quite well. And even though some tiles have looser painting styles than others, it was a great experiment and I really like how they mix together and how the colors complement each other. It is quite relaxing as well to just paint lines and rectangles. I would say it is the perfect activity for a lazy Sunday afternoon. If you decide to give the tiles a background color the way I did it here, I would advise you to blend the paint for the background with a lot of water. It's a fun way to easily recreate the watercolor effects that you see in the original paintwork of the tiles. I definitely used painting references, by the way. They were all inspired by the many tiles I saw while visiting Portugal. Sometimes I did change the colors a bit to have them match the other tiles on the sketchbook spread. I really like this motif. Before I started painting it, I was a bit insecure whether it would work out because of course you have to replicate the lines. It can be difficult to do that, especially when you're painting on the paper immediately without making a sketch first. But I think it works out great. And since the painting style is a bit loose, that's not a problem when the drawing is a bit off anyway. A little messy is okay because that suits the hand-painted nature of the tiles. Gouache paint dries quite quickly, so you're able to work fast. What is also nice about these small paintings is that you can easily start on a new one when the other one needs to dry for a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to be quiet for a while, so you can just enjoy the music and relax by looking at how I paint. In a couple of minutes, I will tell you a bit more about my travel experience, since I was traveling for 3 months all by myself and Porto was just the beginning. If you ever find yourself in Porto, it can be fun to sign up for a tile painting workshop. There are several companies that offer it. It can be fun to both learn more about azulejos in a studio and then paint your own tile that you can bring home. Because the tile of course also has to dry and go into the oven, I would advise you to plan the workshop well and for example not to do this on the last day of your city trip. Or maybe there's also the possibility that the studio the workshop host will send your tile to your home. I didn't do this when I was in Porto because this was the beginning of a 3-month trip for me and I wasn't too keen on taking the towel with me for 3 months. It would probably break down somewhere anyway. But I would recommend it if you want to make your own personal souvenir. I think it's also a fun activity to do this together with a friend or someone who joined you during this trip. If you have enough time to go on a day trip, I would advise you to explore the Douro Valley. You are able to explore this cultural landscape listed as a World Heritage Site by road, train or on a cruise boat. From Porto, I joined a group tour. We traveled by bus and made a couple of stops along the way. You're able to admire breathtaking landscapes over the river and visit vineyards, towns and villages. We stopped at a couple of vineyards to have several tastings. If you're into wine, especially sweet wine, this is a great experience for you because you get to taste typical Portuguese port. And besides tasting it, it's pretty interesting to learn more about the crafting process and its history. This area is one of the oldest wine regions of the world, so if you have the time, I would say, do not miss out on this. Like I said previously, my 3-month trip was completely solo. This was quite new for me. I've always loved doing things by myself. I'm not the kind of person that is going to wait around for someone to join me. I also think that being alone doesn't necessarily mean that you're lonely. I love exploring museums or going to the cinema or library by myself. Traveling for 3 months on my own was quite a challenge though, because it's not only odd to be away from your hometown for a longer time than just a holiday, but not having any family or friends close by is pretty strange. It's something you have to adjust to, but I actually had a pretty great time. For traveling, I kind of was afraid that I would have to face issues all by myself. Figuring out new stuff in a country I've never visited before scared me. Basic things like figuring out public transport, talking to strangers, or having to walk myself home from bars late at night can be quite tricky. But I realized that a lot of things will actually not be an issue at all. Of course, you need time in every place to adjust and to figure out systems, but it works out pretty well. I think it definitely helped that I've lived in a European country all my life, because I can imagine it's more tough when you visit Europe when you're from the US, for example. In 3 months, from April to July, I took multiple trains and 1 flight to visit a couple of cities in Spain. I spent a month in Italy, and I took a train from Naples to the Amalfi Coast, Rome, Florence, up to the north to visit Turin, Verona and Venice. In the last month, I took the train from Venice to Ljubljana, Slovenia, and from there I mostly took the bus. I visited Lake Bled, a couple of national parks, Zagreb, and a couple of coastal places in Croatia. And from there I went to Montenegro as well. I stayed in Kotor, a beautiful old port city that is on the UNESCO World Heritage List. From where I stayed, I had a really beautiful view over the mountains and the bay. The weather was overall really good. I was pretty lucky with that. I didn't need my umbrella and raincoat sometimes, but especially the last month and a half felt like summer. I explored many cities and I swam in the sea, walked around in Slovenia to see gorgeous waterfalls and this Vingar Gorge where the water was really blue. I rented a bike sometimes to explore nearby towns, ate great food, and some of my favorite experiences were shared with other people, either locals or travelers whom I met in hostels or sometimes even on the street, at the beach or in bars. If you're thinking about traveling for a longer time, whether it's with someone else or by yourself, I would recommend doing it. Don't be afraid that you will not meet other people, because that will definitely happen. There are so many options to meet people, and it's going to be one of the best things about your travels. You will meet people by staying in hostels and cooking together in the kitchen, or maybe these people are sleeping in the same dorm, or perhaps there are other public spaces in the hostel where you will meet them. Think of the garden or a lounge. If you book a room on the app or website of Hostelworld, you get to chat with people before or when you're staying at the hostel, so you can easily ask online whether people are available to join you on a walking tour or to have a drink and a chat together. If you don't want to stay in a hostel or there are not a lot of people staying at the place where you're at, you can also meet people by joining a walking tour or a pub crawl. I signed up for a couple of group experiences at Airbnb Experiences and Get Your Guide. In some countries, like Italy and Spain, some tour guides offer food tours in which you go from bar to restaurant to bar to eat high quality food of the region, and you usually have some drinks to go with it as well. That's an easy way to meet people, especially when other solo travelers join the tour as well. Sometimes I thought it was a bit difficult when no other solo travelers joined, but it never turned out to be a bad experience, because a lot of couples or friends or family members joining such a tour are open to meeting new people as well. At least that's my experience. I even joined a food tour in Spain on my birthday, and it was a lot of fun because after the tour we ended up in a cocktail bar where we spent a couple of hours, and I even spontaneously ran into a woman here that I met earlier in Lisbon when I booked a dinner experience with strangers through Airbnb. So basically you really don't have to worry too much about meeting people, because it will happen. And if you want to be alone for a couple of hours or a couple of days, then that's perfectly fine as well. That's exactly what I needed sometimes. If you want some more privacy but you're still on a budget, you can also book a private room through Airbnb. This means that you're staying at an apartment with someone else and you have to share the bathroom and the kitchen, but you do have your own private room. At this point you might wonder whether this video is an ad for Airbnb, but it's not. So we're almost at the end of this video. Thank you for staying here for a long time. I hope you liked the process of me painting these tiles and the background information of all the gorgeous original azulejos that you can see in Portugal. So that was the end of this video. I really hope you like watching it, and I hope you like the information about the tiles that you see everywhere in Portugal. And if you have never visited this gorgeous country, I hope you ever get the chance to do so, because I would love to come back one day. So yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!